So, hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Eternal Void, but with Jazz podcast. I am your host, Michelle, and we've got our co-host,
Gabby. Hi, everyone.
Yo, awesome. How are you doing today, Gabby?
I'm doing pretty great. How are you?
I am doing phenomenal. I am excited. We just had a really fun pre-recording conversation about how messed up 80s cartoons were, and I'm looking forward to bringing some of that vibe with us as we hit the recording button, or as we've hit the record button. Gabby, who are we talking to today?
Today, we are joined by Bella Payne. Hi, Bella.
Hello.
So here's a little bit about Bella. Bella Payne is a voice coach, sound healer, and somatic educator with 23 years of teaching experience. She helps people understand why their voice gets stuck and how to free it. Her work sits at the intersection of classical technique, nervous system science, and trauma-informed healing. She's the founder of The Healthy Voice and the creator of the Voice Liberation Method. How are you doing today, Bella? Thank you so much for joining us.
I'm great. I'm so happy to be here. And by the way, I love the name of your podcast. I love it. It kind of illustrates my whole view on this whole realm of existence. And jazz, in my opinion, is the most medicinal music you can have playing. So I love it.
That's what we're here for. A little bit of whimsy, but also healing is our goal. And I appreciate that. Yeah, it's a name that's near and dear to our heart for sure. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I'm also kind of nervous. Bella, yeah, you and I met probably a few months ago when I started becoming one of your students with the healthy voice stuff. I found you via your YouTube channel and I was like, you know what? I'm going to take a chance on this. And then it really got some really amazing results. I've been to 3 or 4 voice coaches. I've had surgery on my voice and I've had a whole lot of stuff going on with locked up energies and throat chakra and fascia and stuff like that. And I wanted to bring you to the podcast to kind of talk a little bit about some of the stuff that you're doing and maybe elaborate a bit on some other conversations that we've had privately, and just kind of tell people what's going on with the healthy voice stuff, because I'm honestly still to this day pretty surprised by the results that we've been getting. During many of our sessions, I've just entered a new state of nervous system relaxation and coherence that I think people should know about and maybe experience for themselves if they haven't.
Thank you. I appreciate everything you just shared, and I'm really excited to talk with you guys and have a good conversation about the voice and how there's just so many layers to the topics that I work with. And so to answer any questions that you have, and yes, you've made amazing progress in your sessions, and I'm fairly new to the public sphere. I just started my channel I think it's been about 6 months, I think.
Yeah, it really took off.
Yeah, I think my math is right. It was sort of mid-October when I launched The Healthy Voice on YouTube, and and I'd love to talk more about that if you're interested, but I really did not know how it was going to work out. I just knew that I had to do it. And yes, it really took off very, very fast. And so now I have a private community that's growing and getting better each month. I'm doing private coaching, and then the Voice Liberation Method, which I'm super proud of. I'm just at the point where a lot of people are starting, who bought it initially at the very beginning, are finishing up the whole process. So it's been really exciting getting feedback from everybody, and people seem to genuinely like it. So I'm very happy with where we are. But yeah, it is kind of still at the beginning. So a lot of people out there still don't know who I am, and so I'm excited to be on your podcast and hopefully reach more people.
Awesome. Yeah, we are too. And I would love to talk about the community you've got going on and the Voice Liberation Method and all of that and everything you just mentioned. But maybe let's roll it back just a little bit and kind of, you said you felt like it was just something you had to do, as far as the YouTube channel. In my experience, sometimes those things kind of percolate in the back of one's brain for a while, and then all of a sudden you kind of bolt up and you're like, it's time, right? But tell us a little bit like about your journey to get to this point where you have like all of this going on right now.
Well, I would say that music and singing in particular has been a major healing part, healing resource in my life since I was very young. I started singing actually at a very difficult point in my life when I was in 6th grade. So that's around 11 years old, I think, 11, 12, I think. We had just moved we moved quite a bit when I was a kid, but this was an extremely difficult move. My parents had filed bankruptcy. We lost our house. We lost everything. We had to move to another county into an environment which I was just not used to. I had been quite fortunate to grow up in places that were nice, and we had a big yard, and there were woods, and it was safe to play in the neighborhood and that kind of thing, and the public schools were good. And then all of a sudden I found myself in the 6th grade in this really difficult situation where it was a huge middle school, looked like a prison. There were weapon searches. There were violent fights in the halls at least once a week. I got assaulted a couple times. Girls spread rumors. It was just a very bad situation. And on top of that, I had lost everything that had kind of given me some joy and a physical outlet. I've always been a very physical person. I was a gymnast. I was a dancer. And then when we lost our house and I had to move, my bedroom was very small, and the living room was too small for me to live in, to dance in.
Oh,
and
wow.
There was no yard for me to do gymnastics. There was no money for gymnastics lessons. And so I was just kind of like, pent up and couldn't figure out what to do. And then I saw these girls in my neighborhood singing out on the sidewalk in harmony. And
Ooh.
I know, right? It's such a movie type of scene, and it's not something you normally see. But I did live in a primarily African-American neighborhood. And so I learned that that's actually quite common. Like, there's a lot of singing in that community. And so that changed everything for me. I went home, I went up to my room, and I turned on my stereo, and I just started singing. And I was trying to see, if I was any good, and I was not. But I was like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to learn how to sing. And so thankfully, I listened to a lot of the divas. I loved Celine Dion and Whitney Houston, and Mariah Carey, and they have amazing technique. And so I decided that I would try to copy them. And so fast forward to about a year, and I started singing solos in my church. And that's how I learned that I had some ability, and I got a lot of really positive attention from people. And I also experienced this healing aspect of singing. You would have called it maybe a spiritual connection at the time. The words they use in the church is that you brought the spirit into the room. And so people would say that to me about my singing. And I would encounter this feedback continuously. So it was healing me, and it seemed to be having a positive impact on other people. And so from a very young age, I've always been thinking about this healing aspect of music. And so fast forward to when I started teaching music, which was my last year in college, and I needed to find a way to support myself. It's kind of an emergency situation. I had been supporting myself with a full-time job at a women's shelter, and I had to quit suddenly because it was it's a whole thing. The boss, it was too stressful for such a young person to deal with for 3 years. And I had to quit suddenly, and I needed to find a way to support myself. So I started teaching, and I kept thinking, I wish I could do something therapeutic with music. Right. And I was able to, in a certain way, one of the ways I found to support myself was to sing and play in retirement homes. And so that was another situation where I learned about the healing and power behind music, because some of these retirement homes had entire units for dementia and Alzheimer's patients. And these were very educational moments for me, because I would go into these rooms, and it's sort of like on a spectrum, I think is the right word, the whole Alzheimer's and dementia thing. You know, some people are further along and they're not even verbal anymore. They don't remember anything. And some of the most nonverbal, most forgetful people would just bounce up and start singing along with me. Like,
oh, wow.
They could remember all the words to some of these songs, and they could even have a conversation with me afterwards, because something was triggered in them. And the nurses would tell me afterwards about how, you know, so-and-so never talks, never remembers anything. And so I learned in those experiences how powerful music is. And then throughout my 20s, I was struggling with PTSD symptoms and just trying everything I could find to help me deal with these symptoms. And then I learned about sound healing. And so I started going to a sound healer about an hour away from Los Angeles, where I had moved after college. And I started learning about the principles of sound healing. And I started practicing these principles with my voice. And what a difference, what a powerful difference that was. And I became just a true believer in the power of sound healing, but especially with the voice. And so I didn't always, I wouldn't say I was like healed in those days. It took a while. And so the last thing that happened that really set me down this path was when I was about 31 years old. I left a relationship that had been going on for about 6 years, and it was an abusive relationship. That's the only way I can describe it, just to kind of like avoid the whole dance around terminology. Right. It was a controlling relationship where it was just a mess. And what happened was when I left, I was a professional musician. I've been a professional musician this whole time. And I was working on an album when I left this relationship, and still performing on a regular basis. Nothing unusual. I was performing almost every weekend, and I was working on this album with a producer. I was writing songs, and really getting to this point in my career where it should have felt like, it did feel like a turning point. Like, oh my God, someone is investing money in me. I'm going to have a professional album recorded in a famous studio in Hollywood. I've got people who are going to make a music video. I mean, it was just like every musician's dream. Right. And so we got to this point where we were about to go into the studio. And so I wanted to test some songs. And someone asked me to play a couple songs at the Hotel Cafe, which is a pretty famous venue here in LA. And so I was, yeah, absolutely. So I get up on stage and I choke for the first time in my whole life. I have never, ever choked before that. I could barely get my voice to work. But I'm a professional, and I've had scary things happen. So I kind of powered through it. Right. But it was still super embarrassing because my voice wasn't working. It was like barely coming out. And I really looked like an amateur. I did not look like somebody who had been a professional for probably, I guess, 12 years at that point. Right. And so I stopped performing, and I couldn't bear the thought of being humiliated again. And then we got to COVID, and then I started feeling like something's got to give here. I gotta figure this out. And my piano students at the time, who I was still teaching, I mean, the only way I could make a living was teaching music. I couldn't perform anymore. And so they were suffering from the lockdowns, from being stuck at home. And I thought, I've been trying so hard to just be like everybody else who tries to make a living at music. And I've been avoiding this healing aspect that I know is powerful. And so I started incorporating it into my piano lessons with my students. I started teaching them about the vagus nerve and how they could stimulate the vagus nerve to relax their nervous system. And it was all children, by the way, and they loved it. And so they started asking me each week, can we do the vagus nerve thing? And like, they do it to their hand, the face, because we start with the face. Like, can we do the vagus nerve thing? And I was like, oh my God, they're really liking this. And they stayed with me all through COVID. And their parents were always very complimentary, telling me that the lessons were helping them deal with the stress.
That's awesome.
And in turn, it was helping me as well. It was helping me because it was confirming what I already thought about the power of music. And so I realized I've got to get over this stuck, choked feeling I get in my throat every time I try to sing. And so I spent the rest of COVID working on that sound healing practice that I had learned many, many years before. I started developing my own style, and it got me through it. And so by the time we got to this past October, I knew it was just time. Like there was something in me that was like, you gotta do it now. You've been flirting with this idea for, we're going on like, I don't know, a long time.
Wow.
So there you go.
Yeah, that is an awesome journey. I love it. Gabby, I'll hand the microphone over to you. What do you want to ask?
Yeah, that really is like such an amazing journey. And, thank you for, sharing your experiences with us. I'm just like really curious, like when you decided to start your YouTube channel, like what was that process like? Like, was it something where you immediately knew like, okay, this is how I want to structure it. Like, this is what I want to do. Or was there a little bit more of trial and error? So like kind of, what was that process like for you?
All right, you guys are going to love this because I did listen to some of your podcasts. And so I'm like, okay, I'm with you guys. I listened to the one about Twin Peaks, which I've already told Michelle about this.
Yeah, we were going to ask about that later.
Okay. Yeah, I'd love to talk about Twin Peaks. So it really started with a friend of mine having me on her podcast, where I've been involved in the raw vegan world, which I know this is random. Like I don't really talk about this super publicly in the Healthy Voice because I don't want to alienate people. But I've been pretty active in that world. I'm certified in raw food nutrition. I wrote a book on the topic. And I'm really close to a lot of people in that community who have podcasts and books and things like that. And so one of my friends, we had been talking a lot about my journey with my voice. She's one of my closest friends. And so I felt comfortable sharing with her all of the things that I was struggling with. And I would talk to her about my philosophy, which it wasn't something I talked about a lot, my philosophy about which would essentially become the Healthy Voice, the method, the voice liberation method, and sound healing and everything. And she would always respond quite positively. She found it very interesting, and so she wanted me to come on her podcast and talk about the voice as a healing tool. And I was super nervous. I was so nervous. I was so scared that I guess I was afraid that people would laugh at me or think that my ideas were crazy. And it was different. It was the opposite. People started writing to me and asking if I was doing sessions. And in fact, this is insane. Another friend of mine who watched that podcast months later decided to start filming a little documentary about me and my methods. And so we've already done all that filming. She's in the editing process. So clearly this was a good idea. It wasn't a laughable idea. And so that gave me the confidence to start thinking about, okay, I always knew I was going to do a YouTube channel of some kind. I just never knew what. And so I started thinking maybe now is the time. And now here's the part where you guys are going to love it. So I love astrology. Okay. And I've been loosely, not loosely, pretty seriously studying astrology for the last couple years. I started casually studying it about 4 or 5 years ago, maybe even 6 years ago. Just from an academic perspective, really, I'm interested in religion and ancient religion. And when you study the ancients, they all believed in astrology. And so you have to learn about astrology if you want to understand their perspective. I just became so fascinated by it. Like, I got really into it. And so I started reading my own chart about a couple years ago. And I started getting really good at reading my own chart. And right around the time when I was starting to get that feeling of, I think it might be time to do the YouTube channel, I started going deep into my astrology and I started asking AI to help me interpret it. Just to kind of like, it's hard to read your own chart sometimes. You can be a little too biased, or you can.
Oh, yeah.
And I wanted to get another perspective. And everything I was seeing was connecting these dots of voice and healing and spotlight, which was something that I was super scared of. But my North Node is in Leo, which that means North Node means it's something you have to learn in your lifetime to get good at. And the Leo sign is about being in the center of attention, And so that placement always scared me. But when I started looking at my chart in great detail, I started connecting it to every little aspect. And so when I finally saw that big picture in my chart, I was like, okay, that's it. Let's just do the first video and see what happens.
That's really cool. So you just just started the channel, did the first video, and just put it out there, and it was kind of like a dusting off a really old reference here, but if you build it, they will come sort of thing?
Yes, I had it in my mind that if a handful of people found what I had to say interesting, which seemed to happen every few moments, I actually had to talk about it.
Right.
And my students seemed to respond. Oh, that's the other thing I forgot to mention. For a year before I started the channel, I was actually teaching more voice students than usual.
Okay.
And I had been teaching mostly piano until that point. I was avoiding teaching voice for a long time for many, many reasons, which we can get into. It all has to do with this fear of the voice. And I was just plagued with it. But at one point, about a year and a half ago, I decided that I was open to having voice students and that I would experiment on them, essentially. I was like, look, I've proven myself as a piano teacher. I can always fall back on it. So if these voice students come and they quit within a month, I'll know that my methods are not good.
Right.
But I decided to use these very non-traditional methods, which incorporate holistic ideas, somatic therapy ideas, crisis counseling, because when I worked at the women's shelter, I was trained in crisis counseling. And I myself, as somebody who has worked on healing PTSD, I've learned, and a former massage therapist as well, I've learned a lot about somatic therapies. And so I decided to put it all together. And for a year, I used these methods, and it turns out that it was more effective than any of the traditional voice lessons I had ever taught before. They did not quit on me. In fact, they were extremely appreciative, and they stayed on with me all the way until I decided had to quit because I had to focus on the healthy voice. I couldn't teach children anymore. So that was a big reason why I, hold on a second. Your question specifically was, oh yeah, the video. Did you decide to do the video and then see what would happen, build it, they would come? So I decided I would take my opening routine that I was giving every student, which is a vagus nerve massage, teaching them how to do it to their face, how to massage their throat, how to roll their neck a little bit safely, and how to, rolling the shoulders. And I would always educate them on how tension in the body creates tension in the voice. And I said, I'll just start with that and I'll see what happens. And if I get a few people, I'll focus all my attention on helping those people.
That's badass. Yeah, that was the first video of yours that's just, I guess, like you hit the algorithm at like the perfect time, because like you had the subscribers, you took off running, and like I didn't even know I was looking for this, and it just showed up, and I was like, okay, so like just a little bit about like my own journey, like you, I discovered like music as like a healing outlet, around the same age, only my outlet was bass guitar, right? Mm-hmm. Like same age, I rode my bike to a Walmart, and when I came out of the Walmart with my slushie, my bike had been stolen, and my parents were like, we'll buy you a new bike. And I was like, how about a bass guitar? And like, that's how all of that started. But I never really worked with the voice, and all of that trauma and PTSD of life and like all the shit and trauma and assaults and everything just gets like stored if you don't express it. And you're like, okay, so we're going to calm the nervous system and use the voice. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to hit the subscribe on this and see where this goes. And no regrets. And I swear I'm going to turn this into a question. Yeah, let's talk about the vagus nerve technique. What's going on with the vagus nerve? Why is that important? And what do you teach as far as opening that up as a beginner practice?
Well, the vagus nerve starts in the back of the brain, and it goes into the face, and then it goes down the throat, and it connects to all of the organs in the body. And when the vagus nerve is stimulated, it triggers that rest and digest mode in your nervous system. Mm-hmm. And so it's very relaxing. And there are many ways you can stimulate the vagus nerve. Deep breathing is one of them, which we have to do when we're working on singing. We have to manage our breath support. And singing is one of the best ways to stimulate. Also massage. That's why we start with face massage. It's one of the reasons. There are other reasons why we do that in voice lessons. But the original reason why I started face massage was to stimulate my vagus nerve, because I was running on such a high energy of fear and stress. And so I just wanted some relief. And every book on somatic therapies talks about the vagus nerve. It's a very important concept to understand. It's very simple too. And so every time you trigger it, you're relaxing your nervous system, and you're sending that relaxation response to all of your vital organs at the same time.
Rock on. Cool. Well, appreciate that. Gabby, I'll pass the mic over to you.
Yeah. So we've talked a little bit about like your YouTube channel. I would love to talk a little bit more about, what can people expect when they, say they book a session with you, or, they sign up for one of your courses. Like, what can they kind of, expect to experience? Like, what is working with you like?
A lot of people respond with a feeling of, a lot of people feel very seen and heard in my sessions, and they come away feeling very calm and happy. A lot of people feel a sense of relief from the sessions. My goal is to actually get you feeling better. And I don't avoid it on purpose. I don't use the word sound that much, or hearing. A lot of voice lessons will use the language of, do you hear yourself when you do this? Or listen to your voice when you do this. And I actually don't use those words very much, because I'm more focused on the way you feel with your voice. And so it ends up feeling a lot more like an energy healing session, or a massage in a way, which I know sounds really strange, but a lot of my technique is inspired by my time as a massage therapist. And so what we'll do at the beginning is we'll talk, because with voice work, it's very scary for almost everybody. In fact, I don't think I've ever had a voice student come into a first session who was not nervous. It just doesn't happen. And even if somebody is extremely experienced or professional even, they'll still be nervous on the first session. And so I want to have a conversation with you so that you can become comfortable with me, so that you can also get a sense of who I am and realize that you can trust me. You can feel safe around me. I want to make sure people feel safe around me. And then we'll do some exercises to get you feeling the vibrations of your voice, and to also start to realize where some of your energy is stuck, which is another way of saying where trauma is blocking the flow of energy. And so we'll do a little bit of that, and then we'll figure out together where your most urgent blocks are, what we need to work on, and then we'll come up with a plan. And with the voice liberation method, it's different because obviously there's no talking, but there are journal prompts for each week. It's a 7-week course, and each week in the 7 weeks includes a visualization to help you with your mindset. Because like I said, a lot of people who come to voice lessons are nervous and scared, and they're carrying a lot of baggage, a lot of programming around their voice. And so they're afraid to even sing by themselves. They're afraid that they're not going to be any good. There's a lot of things that people are afraid of when it comes to their voice. And so in the voice liberation method, I go through in the very beginning this idea of going on a hero's journey. And a hero's journey is a format that's tried and true throughout time of storytelling. And it has to do with an unlikely hero, somebody who, like you think of Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, who's just a girl from Kansas, but she gets called to go on this journey because she wants to get back home. And my perspective is that when you decide to take voice lessons, you decide to work on your voice, you're going on a hero's journey. It's very scary, but you have to have courage to keep going through it. Does that make sense?
That really does. And I think it's really interesting because a lot of the times people will map sort of this initiatory journey, like the spiritual initiatory journey, to the hero's journey. So it's amazing how you kind of combine sort of what we see as like mundane, so like music, singing, the voice, the body, this sort of physical thing, with sort of the magical, this sort of spiritual, technique, creating this holistic method that I think is, very effective, and people are responding, very positively to it. And it seems like people are really searching for that right now, especially like looking for ways to combine the spiritual with what, they already kind of understand within their bodies.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And I think that actually helps to add to the answer I gave Michelle about why do you think that the YouTube video took off and the other videos. And I think a lot of people feel very fearful of expressing themselves at this time in particular. I think it's been building. I don't think it's especially this moment. I just think that for a long time, if I had to guess, I would say since Facebook took off as a very popular form of social media, which was the late 2000s, because I can still remember watching that and being very hesitant to join in because I could see the potential for a lot of public humiliation and a lot of, we didn't say canceling back then, but I was envisioning an era where people would lose their livelihood for maybe saying the wrong thing. And I found it very concerning. And throughout the years, I've paid attention. And I think that we kind of reached a fever pitch where so many people are so scared to just be themselves. Like even something as seemingly simple as dressing the way you want to dress. I think that even that is scary for a lot of people. I think we've gotten to a point where people are so afraid to just be uniquely themselves, and this affects the voice. And that's one of my main points, is that everything going on with you is reflected in your voice. And so if you feel afraid of being yourself, it's going to come out as a sort of a tense, sometimes I would describe it as a strangled sound. Sometimes the pitch is much higher than what is natural for your body. And so I think that a lot of people are feeling like, I can't go on like this. I can't do this anymore. I have to get comfortable with myself.
Yeah, I think you're spot on with that assessment. I think a lot of people are like at that point where like they're craving authenticity and they're craving, that self-expression. And I think it's amazing that you're giving people the tools to really learn how to express themselves and how to feel comfortable expressing themselves.
Thank you. I'm really happy that I can help. This is something that I've been working on in my own life for a very long time, as I mentioned earlier. And at some point, I did start to feel guilty that I wasn't sharing with enough people. Because when you teach people in person, you can only teach so many people. And I started to feel like I have to, even though I was very uncomfortable and scared to put a video out, to start a YouTube channel, period, because I knew once I started the channel, that was going to be just the beginning. I was going to commit to making courses and getting a community going, because I really believe strongly in the idea of a community around this kind of thing, especially. And I was very, very nervous to do it, but I feel like I have something that can help people. And so the people who need it will find me.
Yeah, definitely. And for people who are interested in, taking courses with you, we'll have all the links to that down in the show notes. So please, if you're interested, please check that out.
Yeah, definitely recommend. I wanted to ask about this community you've got going. What's going on there?
Okay, so I launched the community Thanksgiving weekend, so the end of November. And it was the first thing I did after I started the channel. I wanted to do that before the course. I wanted to have, so I'll tell you about the community first. Yeah. And then if you have follow-up questions, I'll answer them. But it's basically a community for people who are working on their voice, who have a lot of trauma, who have a lot of fear around their voice, but it's classical technique that everybody learns when they take voice lessons. It's just packaged up in a way that is in the language of somatic healing, somatic therapies. And so I do a live session, at least one live session every week. And that's where I get to teach. I get to teach a technique in the group setting, and we do a practice together. So most of the session, they're hour long. Most of the session is singing, and they get to learn these techniques together. We also have daily challenges where, like, every month has a different theme. So this last month was my body, my voice. And so I spent the whole month teaching everybody about how the body is the voice, and all the techniques were. It was also a practice challenge, so every single day had an actual technique to try out, either on your own, or you could record yourself and post it in the comments as a voice memo, which is super cool. And then we also do weekly activities, and so these are voice lessons disguised as games, essentially. Or so I like to do story-based activities, as you've picked up on already with the whole hero's journey thing. So last week we did, 2 weeks ago we did Romancing the Voice, which was daily activities inspired by vintage romance novels. And so it was all about like the first day was about the estrangement. So the moment when you left your voice. And then the next day it's about reconnecting. So writing a love letter and an apology to your voice, and the reconnection, the dance, and then last week we did Anarchy in the Voice Box, which was like a punk rock theme. Which was awesome for teaching projection and diaphragm and power, and learning how to make your voice heard without straining it. So that's an example. We do these every week. So many fun things come out of it. The most popular thing we do is a courage circle, where everybody is invited, if they want to share their voice. And the whole idea is to become courageous. And so you don't have to give, there's no pressure to give a stellar performance of any kind. You can sing a whole song, you can sing a verse, you can recite a poem. I've had people in there even just hum a few notes, just to kind of get used to the idea of using their voice in front of people. We just had our last one yesterday, and one of our members was so brilliant to actually say, just for a few minutes, I'm just going to be quiet and let all of you stare at me, so that she could get comfortable being stared at, which is, of course, part of being in front of an audience, is you have to learn to be comfortable with people looking at you. So we also do songwriting and sound healing sessions, but that's it in a nutshell, pretty much.
How does one sign up for that community?
I will give you guys the link, and we have 3 levels actually. So the other reason I wanted to do a community is because voice lessons are expensive. They're really expensive, and it's really hard. I was so fortunate because I learned my first lessons in singing in church, which is how a lot of people get started in singing. Mm-hmm. And then those same people at my church helped me pass an audition to get into an exclusive arts high school, which was free to attend, but you had to pass an audition. And so I had the most incredible voice education for 4 years for free. I mean, I really won the lottery. I couldn't afford voice lessons. I didn't have private voice lessons until I was a junior in high school, when my dad was declared 100% disabled by the Veterans Administration, which meant that I got benefit checks. His dependents got money every month. And so I used my check to pay for voice lessons. So that was the first time I was able to get private voice lessons. And so I'm sympathetic to the idea that a lot of people can't afford lessons. And so the first thing I wanted to do was to create a community where there would be 3 different tiers. And so the least expensive tier is, you guys are going to post this podcast after the prices go up, which is happening on May 1st. I'm going to tell you the new prices.
Sure.
The lowest price is $35 a month. And you get all the daily activities. I put out 3 warm-up and exercise videos a week. So there's so much education. You get a group practice session, one of them, and then the Courage Circle as well. So it's an incredible value for a very low price. And then the second tier is $77, and that gets you 3 live practice sessions and everything else. And then the top level is, I think, $167. I think it might be less than that. That's the mastery level. And that gets you everything plus 2 master classes. And master classes are when you are welcome to sing in the group by yourself. And I give you direct feedback as if it were a private lesson. And you also get a 30-minute session with me every month to do whatever you want. We can just check in and see how your goals are going, or I can help you with a technique that's bothering you. But that's an amazing value too. So if you can afford the mastery level, it's still way cheaper than what a single private session would. Well, I guess it's like a few dollars more than one private session.
Yeah.
So it's, whatever
you're still getting
you can
so
afford.
much more than one private session, though.
So much more. Yes, so much more. You can get, in fact, if you're interested in Michelle, I'll just get you in there because you're a private client. And so we'll figure it out if you want to come join us, because it's really, I actually think it's a great enhancement to private sessions. To have,
It sounds
have a
like it would be,
community.
yeah.
Yeah, because one of the things when I was in that high school is that my teachers were great, but I really give my peers the most credit for teaching me, because hearing them audition and sing solos and hearing them during rehearsals and seeing them grow and what, I learned so much being in a community. And
Yeah.
we are severely lacking community these days.
I think so too. Yeah. Well, that sounds awesome. I'll definitely talk to you about that offline, but tingles. I love it. Gabby, what do you want to ask Bella? I think we should maybe leave a little bit of time after that for some Twin Peaks talk.
Ooh, yes, absolutely. Yeah, I guess before we switch over to Twin Peaks stuff, what are just some maybe like little techniques that people could incorporate into their daily routine to sort of start getting in touch with their voice? Like if they've never really explored it before, like just little everyday activities that they can easily like slide into their routine.
One of the best things you can do is start humming. Humming is a really great, it stimulates the vagus nerve. So you're going to feel a relaxation response. And it's also, it's a key part of the technical teachings, because when you hum, and if you want to hum while you're listening to me, you can try this out. But when you hum, you can actually feel the pressure on the roof of your mouth, which is how we work on resonance. And resonance is getting our voice to be heard, to project without pushing, without strain. And humming also opens up the throat. It drops the back of the tongue, which opening the throat is another technique that we work on a lot in voice lessons. So if you were to just start humming a lot, and then if you wanted to experiment every now and then, open up your mouth and sing a few words, notice if you feel something different, because you've opened up your throat and you've felt the vibrations on the roof of your mouth, and you might just inadvertently feel that when you start singing words. So that's one thing, humming. And then another thing you can start doing is you can take advantage of your yawns. So every single time you yawn, make a sound, because whenever we yawn, so we go, oh, we drop the back of the tongue, we lift the soft palate, and sound comes out easily. And so you can start to understand what it feels like to have a voice that feels free and comes out easily. So that's another thing you can do. Another thing is you can either make it a habit of singing along to a playlist that you create yourself, one of your favorite playlists. Or if you're feeling really bold, find a YouTube channel that has karaoke tracks and make a playlist of your favorite karaoke or your favorite songs and sing them in between meetings, or when you're just, I don't know, you're sitting at your desk, or maybe you've got your phone nearby and you're getting ready for the day, and try to incorporate singing throughout your day.
Oh, I love that. That all sounds like so much fun, especially the yawning one, because like you
Yeah.
don't really think of yawning as, like really anything, but like, yeah, it can turn into this little vocal exercise. How fun.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And we yawn a lot in our lessons. It's,
Yes, we do.
right? Michelle will tell you. We yawn all the time. We pretend to yawn so that we can feel the sensation of opening up the throat, and then real yawns usually come through. So I tell everybody, take advantage of your yawns. There it is, Michelle. Let it out.
Oh, I love
I
it.
regret nothing.
I'm super relaxed too, so I get it.
Yeah. This always happens. Like we talk to such cool people, Gabby, we just vibe with, and all of a sudden I'm like in a relaxed, nervous state, and I'm not like hunched forward over a keyboard, all tense, waiting for like the next like oh shit moment. I'm just, and like as like my body and like shoulders detense, like the throat opens up and the soft palate and the tongue moves back, and then the yawn comes out, and yeah, it's good stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. Would you like me to do a little exercise with your audience?
Yeah.
That sounds great. Yeah, absolutely. And
Absolutely.
if
Okay.
anybody's driving right now or operating any heavy machinery, you might want to pause and come back.
That's a really good idea. You can try some of this stuff at a stoplight if you're in rush hour traffic and you're going to be there for a while. I actually tell people to take advantage of those moments, especially with breathing. So we'll do a brief exercise where you can kind of get a sense of the whole body at work. So we usually start with relaxing the upper body a little bit. So we roll the shoulders back a few times. So we want to encourage slow movements, and we want to start to pay attention, because a lot of singing is actually just awareness, because a lot of us are not aware of what our bodies are actually doing. And to become a really good singer or a really good speaker, you have to become so aware of your body. And so notice the muscles in your shoulders and begin to incorporate your breathing. So we'll breathe in through the nose as your shoulders go up, and out through the mouth as you drop back. And this encourages a slow pace as well. So inhale up and exhale back. Good. Okay, now you can settle in. And then put your hands on the highest part of your waist. So right where the ribs are, the lowest ribs are. And just wrap your fingers around your waist as much as you can. And then start to breathe normally, or at least notice your breathing. We're not doing anything special here. And you can close your eyes if it's easier, because this will make it easier to feel the sensations with your vision shut down. So notice how your ribs expand as your lungs fill with air. And notice how your ribs contract as air leaves your lungs. And so now we're going to do a deeper breathing exercise while simultaneously noticing the expansion and contraction. So on your next expansion, I want you to inhale through an imaginary straw through your mouth. You feel everything fill up. And then on the exhale, we're going to blow out slowly through that straw. And you notice how everything starts to contract. We do this a few more times. Just noticing how the ribs push everything out and how everything contracts and comes back in on that exhale. And so you're noticing the connection between your breathing process and the muscular movements of your torso. Maybe just do one more round, and then you're gonna keep doing this, but I'm gonna give you a different direction. So on your next exhale, I want you to just make some sound. You can hum, or you can make an ah sound. Whatever you want to do, just make a sound on your next exhale. You're noticing how the muscular movement is synced up with your breathing pattern and how your sound is synced up with that exhale and that rib cage collapsing. Now, whether you did a hum or not, just do a hum on your next round. Notice the pressure on the roof of your mouth. You're going to feel some vibrations, maybe in your sinus area, maybe in your cheekbones. The pressure is going upward into what we call the mask, and that's your resonator in your face. We want to keep the sound buzzing in that area. So on your next exhale, when it's time to make sound, I want you to keep that feeling of the hum, that pressure in the roof of your mouth, but you're going to drop your jaw into an ah. Ah. The jaw just hangs. We're not forcing it down, but we're not letting it creep up either. It just hangs down. And you feel that buzz up in the face bones, same one you felt in that hum. And then finish up that last sound, and then just release your hands and focus on the sensations in your face. Your breathing is still doing its thing. Torso expands and contracts. Maybe you feel some sensation in your face, your throat, maybe your chest. Just notice. So all we're doing is noticing. We're just paying attention to the voice. The voice so rarely gets our full attention, and so it just goes on default mode. But in order to improve our sound and improve that feeling that our voice can give us, we have to begin to pay attention to it. And then you can open up your eyes. How'd that feel?
Wow, that was very relaxing.
Yeah, that was very, very zen. I'm feeling very grounded. Very much like the vagus nerve is like, oh, hey, thanks for inviting me to the party. You know? So,
Yes.
Bella, thank you for that. That was very generous.
Thank
Oh, I'm so happy to share. Another reason why I love teaching voice and I like teaching in this manner is because I feel like this is a secret that should be, it's a shame that more people don't realize the calming effects that that singing practice and vocal exercises can have. Because what we just experienced was a very short exercise, but it calmed your nervous system down. Now imagine an hour-long practice session. Imagine what would happen if you sang for an hour. And imagine what would happen if you used your full range. Because the way the body works is your body is a musical instrument, and you're designed like a musical instrument. So your low notes resonate down in your chest, and your high notes resonate up in your face. And so when you can get deep down into that lower part of your register, it's a very cool experience. I've had many, many, many journey sessions that are similar to how psychedelic experiences are described. And when I go really, really high, you can have a very euphoric sensation. And so I don't know I don't know if you guys were around a lot of singers when you were younger, if you had a choir that was active or a glee club of some kind. But a lot of people who are not singers, who are not in that world, find there are some people who find singers very annoying, like in the Glee Club sense, because they're so happy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I've always said, well, I know some people don't like that because they're so unhappy themselves, but I'm willing to share with you my secrets because the secret is in the singing. That's why everyone who sings a lot is so happy. We're constantly stimulating our vagus nerve and we're reaching even further up into our brain, getting that euphoric sensation. So, yeah.
Yeah, and you're not the first podcast guest who's mentioned that. And I think that's definitely something that needs to be more widely disseminated to the world at large. So. Yeah. Oh, Bella, thank you so much for that. This has been such a joy working with you, and I'm so glad that you came on the podcast. We'll talk, we'll wrap that up in a minute, but I did want to ask, how was the Twin Peaks watch through? Did you finish it all?
I'm almost done. Well, I'm almost done with season 2. I am going to watch The Return, that later season that showed up not that long ago. But, I love Twin Peaks. I love it. I just started watching it for the first time about, 2 months ago, maybe 3 months ago. And it's just right up my alley. I don't even know where to start. I love everything. I love how creepy and weird it is. I love Agent Cooper's quirkiness. I love him. I love how David Lynch takes the mundane and makes it strange and unusual. I love the music, and I love the fashion. I love the 80s, 90s fashion. And the characters. What, that woman with the log? Like, how did he come up with that?
Yes. I love the log lady. She is a classic. She's definitely the best. Oh my gosh. I'm so glad you're loving Twin Peaks. It's an amazing show, and I don't want to spoil anything for you because you are up for a treat. Like, you're just going to love it. Like, if you love the first couple seasons, The Return, it's like everything is cranked up to 11. Like, it gets weird.
Yeah.
It gets super weird.
I'm so happy to hear that.
Yeah. Also, correct me if I'm wrong, but on The Return, they pretty much have a musical guest on each episode.
They do.
Like, it's just part of the episode.
Oh, I love the way David Lynch incorporates music into his work.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
It's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah,
always
like my first
somebody singing. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I was just going to say my first experience with David Lynch wasn't any of his visual media, but was with the Lost Highway soundtrack, right? Because I was a huge Nine Inch Nails fan.
Oh.
And they had
I never saw it.
Oh, I saw it once, but I've listened to that soundtrack a million times, you know? Because I was a huge Nine Inch Nails fan, and there was that 5-year gap between the Downward Spiral and the Fragile, but Trent had done 1 or 2 soundtrack songs, and The Perfect Drug was one of them at that time.
I didn't know that he did a David Lynch film. That's...
Yeah.
It's really
You're in
interesting.
for a surprise in The Return if you like Nine Inch Nails. Yeah.
I'm really happy to hear you guys say that because I was a little worried about watching, I don't know if you guys ever watched Arrested Development, but that was a really quirky, offbeat comedy that kind of failed in the mainstream sense, but it has a cult following. And then they did a reboot many, many years later, and it was okay, but it's weird seeing everybody decades later. So I'm really happy to hear you because I'm almost done with season 2. So I'm going to be watching The Return very soon.
Ooh, yay. I will say, don't skip Fire Walk With Me, the movie, because there are certain aspects that they reference back to that are only in the movie.
So I should watch that next.
Yes, definitely watch Fire Walk With Me and then The Return. There's a couple characters who pop up in Fire Walk With Me who are also connected to musical stuff. I'm not going to say who, but it's a fun surprise.
Thank you for that tip. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, and the music stuff in The Return is phenomenal because everything is very intentional. Like if you listen to the lyrics, if you listen to like the actual like sound of the music, it goes along or like parallels with what's happening in that episode. And it kind of has like a little hint as to where things are going, like what the underlying vibe is.
That's really cool. I actually think David Lynch is perfect for this conversation because he is such a good example of somebody who had a very unique voice, and he was not afraid to express whatever it was that was in his head. You watch a David Lynch film, and I know the first time I watched a David Lynch film, it was Wild at Heart. And it was in a movie theater. They were doing, maybe it was an anniversary, I don't know, because it was only about 10 years ago, I think. And I had never seen a David Lynch film, and so I did not know what to expect. And there's this opening scene, I think it's Wild at Heart, where there's someone having like a heart attack on his lawn or something. I think that's the one. And it's just so random. Like nobody goes to help him. It's just a random scene panning through a suburban neighborhood, and it just goes on to the next. And there are all these very weird and strange things that happen. And it took me about 20 minutes to understand the mind of David Lynch, because people were laughing at things that I thought were kind of like, should we be laughing at this? But then I got it. I was like, oh, wow, David Lynch is just like, he's got a very surreal mind, and he was not afraid to show it on screen. Whereas most people would be like, I don't know, this might be too weird for people. I don't know if I should do this. David Lynch is like, no, put that on the screen. I like that. I like what I'm seeing in my head, and we'll just put it up there and we'll see who gets it.
Yes, that's why he's definitely one of my favorite directors. Like there's this one scene in The Return, like it's not a spoiler. It's like at the Roadhouse, and there's this guy, he's sweeping the floor of the Roadhouse because there's like a bunch of like cigarette butts on the floor. And like this scene goes on for like a good like 5 minutes of just this guy like sweeping the floor. And like the people were trying to like get David Lynch to cut this scene out, and he's like, no, like this needs to be here. And like when you actually think about it, like when you see it in context, it does make sense why it's there.
Yes, that's such a good example of his confidence.
Yeah,
because you're right. I can totally see the people in the background being like, I don't think this is a good idea. I don't think you should have this. But it's like, no, he totally had a vision, and he trusted his vision. I also recently watched Mulholland Drive for the first time.
Love
that. Well, that's a lie. I tried to watch it when it came out, and I did not get it. It made me angry. I was one of those people who was like, this is stupid. And I turned it off. I was so annoyed. But now I'm in a place where I can understand David Lynch. And so I absolutely loved it. And one of the things I love is that he was so committed to not telling people about the interpretation. Because I watched a lot of interviews about, and I remember thinking, God, that takes a lot of confidence. He really trusted his art to speak for itself. He trusted his process. And he trusted that there was an audience that would be ready for him.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. I was just going to say, I think there's a lot to say for that, for like the theme of our entire conversation today. Yeah.
Exactly.
Never thought about that before. Very cool.
Do you mind if I say one more thing about
Not
that?
at all.
Go for it.
Yeah, go right ahead.
Because my personal agenda is to get people comfortable with how they sound, with who they are, without troubling themselves with comparison. You know, I think one of the most annoying things about the modern era is that there's not enough David Lynches in the world. There aren't enough people who are just willing to be weird and strange and unusual. There's not enough Tim Burtons in the world. There's not enough there are like we were talking before the podcast, we were talking about weird cartoons from the 80s. I miss those people, like those people who were creating very strange content. And I feel like now everything is so formulaic. It's based on the algorithm. It's based on market research, like what's going to do the best in the market, as opposed to, hey, I got a strange idea. Let's do this and just see what happens. Which I think that's what happens when you find your true voice. You start to realize, oh, I don't have to sound like everybody else. And then that's really what draws people to you.
Yeah,
Damn right.
100%. Yeah, you said it perfectly.
Yeah, I think that is like a perfect like little bow to wrap everything up. That is awesome. Bella, tell our listeners, where can people find you?
All right, so I apologize. I'm in the process of getting my main website, updated, where you'll be able to find everything, but you can't right now. But if you wanted to just have a direct link to me, you can go to bellapayne.com. There's a contact page, and soon I'll have all my courses and my links up there. It's not updated. The best place to find my work is to start with my YouTube channel, The Healthy Voice. And so from there, you can get to know me, and you can get to know my methods and my technique. And there are links below every single video. So if you wanted to do the course, the 7-week course, the Voice Liberation Method, you'll find a link there. If you want to check out the community, there's also a free guide that I have called The Beginner's Guide to Healing Trauma Through the Voice, Body, and Nutrition, which is a really good place to start. And it'll get you onto my newsletter, which is called Frequency Notes, which I put out every Sunday. And so one posted this morning, and I do have it public online, so I can give you guys a link to that if you want. But yeah, that's how you can find me.
Awesome. And very cool. And what's up next for you? So you're working on your website. Any other big projects in the pipelines?
Yes, I am in the long run working on a Voice Liberation Method Part 2. I want to put that out in the fall because the theme is shadow work. It's going to be called, I want to do 3 voice liberation methods. I'm kind of going heavy on the hero's journey theme. Mm-hmm. And so whenever you have a trilogy, the second one is like, you go deep. Yeah. You go dark. And so we're going to do shadow work in that one. And I'm going to put all of the exercises to minor key signatures, minor modes. Mm-hmm. So very, like if you like dark music, you're going to love this one. And here's a fun thing I'll tease you with is I'm going to have comedy bits in there for comic relief, which members will be invited, and I'm going to do my best to perform them. This is something we did in the community. We did a week of stand-up, and all the jokes were centered around, being afraid of your voice, that kind of thing. And it's really, the reason I want to do it is because we're doing heavy shadow work, and you have to have comic relief. In every scary movie, there's a character who you can count on to crack a joke every now and then. And so to keep things balanced, each week will end with a stand-up comedy bit, which the members of the course will be invited to read in their own voice and post a voice memo. So I'm so excited about that. But that's going to take me a while because I want it to be just as good as the first one. So in the short term, I'm doing a series called The Voice Trilogy, which is inspired by the story-based learning that we've been doing in the community. So we'll have Romancing the Voice, we'll have Once Upon a Voice, which is a fairy tale theme, and Dial V for Voice, which is like a vintage mystery, thriller, crime novel type of theme, where it's story-based, but each chapter is a voice lesson of some kind, and you practice the lesson either on your own or you can record a voice memo and put it in the comments. And that'll come out soon. I'll do a pre-launch of that very, very soon. I have the outline and everything. So I'll do a pre-sale for that one within the next couple weeks. Maybe by the time you post this podcast, actually.
Probably so. I bet that'll line up nicely. Well, sweet. Well, we're excited and can't wait to see how this turns out. Well, thank you so much for coming on the Eternal Void, but with Jazz podcast. I think, did we have slight delay here? We had a thing in that form. We asked about okay, so no charities listed. That's fine.
Whatever you guys want.
Yeah, we'll just put something in the show notes. Not required. We asked. It was like a thing we were going to do, and then we kind of forgot about it on some episodes. So just making sure we don't forget. But I'll edit all of this out. And Gabby, you want to close us out, or would you like me to?
Either's fine. I can do it.
All right. You know what? I always do it, so you go ahead and do it.
Yay. Well, everybody, thank you again for another wonderful episode of the Eternal... Thank you again, everyone, for another awesome episode of the Eternal Void, but with Jazz. Thank you, Michelle and Bella, for joining us today, and I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your week. Bye.
Bye. Thank you for having me.